Today I had to make one of the toughest decisions of my professional career. Today I terminated Phil Brooks, CM Punk, for cause. This stems from a backstage incident at AEW All In last Sunday. The incident was regrettable and it endangered people backstage. That includes the production staff, the people who help put the show on every week, innocent people who had nothing to do with it. I've been going to wrestling shows for over 30 years. I've been producing them on this network for nearly 4 years. Never in all that time have I ever felt, until last Sunday, that my security, my safety, my life was in danger at a wrestling show. I don't think anybody should feel that way at work. I don't think the people I work with should feel that way. And I had to make a very difficult choice today. It came at the recommendation of a discipline committee here in AEW, as well as outside legal counsel, who delivered a unanimous recommendation. And I have followed up on that recommendation.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Slamtown. I'm Mike Ginn. That's Dan Bakley. You know the deal. We take a subject and debate it until it's done. Of course, you saw right off the top of the episode, Tony Khan firing CM Punk with cause, which I think is important to mention. We'll talk about that as the show goes on. Dan, I'm just going to jump right into this. Initial thoughts. CM Punk fired with cause. We've kind of heard different stories about what happened at All In. We know what happened at All Out last year. What are your initial thoughts on the situation?
To be honest, I'm not surprised because he's kind of been a repeat offender of having issues in companies. You know, one time is out of the norm, twice becomes a thing, and then a third time it's just inevitable to happen. And that's what it's been with him. He had issues in WWE, came over to AEW. It was great for a year, and then of course had the whole brawl out after all out, and then now this a year later to the day of the brawl out, and he has something with Jack Perry, and I think it's just to the point where it kills morale in the locker room. Even though he put people in the seats, is it worth it? I don't think so, because it's ruining everything backstage, and you need to kind of get backstage back together on one team again instead of having these split locker room issues in AEW. I think it was something that was just one mess up away from happening.
Well, damn it, Dan, we're not supposed to agree on things. Like, this show's over. We might as well just cut it right now. Because exactly what you said. And I'll go into a few more details, but damn it, you just messed up the whole show. We're supposed to fight. We're supposed to be fighting on this. Look, I was excited as anybody when Phil Brooks, CM Punk came back in 2021. You know, 7 years away, the whole thing with WWE, he kind of popped up on Backstage, their little Fox program for a little bit, which was hired by Fox, not WWE. He didn't work for WWE. And he was kind of snarky, kind of sarcastic with a lot of the stuff, but he's kind of getting that itch again. You saw him pop up on a couple indie shows as a favor. And then all of a sudden, the secret was kind of out of the bag. He eventually agreed to come to AEW. And it was like the worst kept secret of the debut of Rampage was also the debut of CM Punk, which coincidentally, the debut of Collision was the return of CM Punk. Built two shows around the guy. Like I said, his return to wrestling was an iconic moment. You sit there, look up the YouTube video or whatever the case is, and it has more views than almost any video in AEW history. But the guy that returned in 2021 is not the guy that left WWE in 2014. As anybody with 7 years, our lives evolve. And CM Punk is no different. Not to mention, he's kind of a different cat. You know what I'm saying? Like, this guy is beyond the straight edge, beyond his lifestyle choices. He kind of lives a different path. You know, sometimes he's in social media, sometimes he goes away from it for a long time. He'll very quickly block you, which I actually got blocked for actually sharing a video of one of his UFC like fights. Like, I think it was the lead up to the first one or something like that. They did like one of those little vignettes of him like working out and getting ready. And I was like, oh, I'm excited for this. And for some reason I got blocked after that. And from that point on, the gloves were off and me and CM Punk been fighting. He just doesn't know it because he blocked me. But but that said, like, we were all excited for his return. And what you get in front of the camera is great, but there's always that but. And he has his share of friends in AEW, obviously FTR. I'm sure Ricky Starks was happy with him because he was pushing him to the moon on Collision. He has a couple of veterans in his corner. Jericho and him had a falling out, but then they kind of got back together and they were hanging out again. He even asked him if he could use one of his moves going into All In. But Jon Moxley said something in a promo with CM Punk last year, right?
Look, you have no idea how genuinely sorry I am that CM Punk just didn't turn out to be what you wanted him to be. He didn't turn out to be what any of us wanted him to be when we welcomed him back into this business, gave him a second chance in the greatest sport in the world. It just didn't work out. And while I am truly sorry for that, I know he's your boy, I know he's from Chicago and you love him, I have zero sympathy for CM Punk. And that is because CM Punk, fragile ego, fragile body, weak mind, weak spirit.
That's the truth about CM Punk, Phil Brooks. He's very sensitive to every subject. He takes every subject very personally, whether it's, fighting for trans rights, LGBT rights, Hollywood rights, like strike rights. Like he's on the front lines of seemingly like every cause. And I don't think that's insincere. I think that's just really, he puts himself into every situation. But when you're that kind of person, you can't then turn around and let every single thing bother you. People want to throw Jack Perry under the bus. Jack Perry was one of 3 people he sent home from that collision 2 weeks ago. He also sent home Christopher Daniels. Why? Because he was like one of the people breaking up that brawl and was one of the people that reported what actually happened to Tony Khan, and he kind of felt like he was a snitch and sent him home. He confronted and bullied Ryan Nemeth for calling him soft, which really wasn't far from the truth if you see how he's acting, and sent Ryan Nemeth home from that collision, a guy begging for a job basically at this point because he's one of the lower tier AEW talents. And then he sent Jack Perry home. And the story actually goes that Jack actually had permission from AEW to use Real Glass. CM Punk said, we don't do that here. Vetoed it. They got in a confrontation, sent Perry home. Perry, of course, trying to be a heel, played it up on national TV, on national pay-per-view.
You know what this is right here? And then crushing. Real Glass. Crushing the abdomen. Go cry me a river.
And then, of course, CM Punk took offense to that. They got into a fight. Who started it, how it ended, that's a million different stories.
I will say this, though. Even though he took about it the wrong way, I do know that Jack Perry kind of like was pressing his buttons each week, talking about it, and then he made a snarky comment to Punk right before Punk went on stage at All In against.
Well, that's the difference in stories. A lot of people say Punk was nose to nose to him the moment he came through the curtain.
Yeah.
And
then he made the glass comment, and then it was Samoa Joe who had to like, we got to go on. Just don't worry about it.
And that's what I'm getting to, the whole cause thing for firing, right? Because the Jack Perry incident is not why CM Punk got fired. CM Punk, in the outrage of that incident, basically destroyed a production table, lunged at Tony Khan, said he quits and hates his place. And in that process, after he endangered production crew who are not wrestlers, who are not people that are built to defend themselves. Jack Perry, as tiny as he is, he can fight himself. Like he's a wrestler. He's used to taking punishment. Like he just went through a limo window. Like he's not worried about CM Punk putting him in a headlock. But Tony Khan and the production crew are not fighters. They're not wrestlers. And they're not built to take punishment every single week. And when you endanger an actual employee, which if you remember how Tony handled the CM Punk Elite thing a year ago, he suspended all of them because employees were in danger. Yeah. And he treats AEW like a business. He doesn't treat it like a wrestling company. He treats it like a business. So the lawyers get involved, the arbitrators get involved, all the extra outside sources get involved to determine how an outcome should happen. And in this case, they determined CM Punk should be terminated because he endangered actual employees. Tony Khan aside, he actually endangered production crew. Now, if I go a step further, he endangered the biggest show, arguably in wrestling history, definitely in the modern history, of over 80,000 paid tickets, however you want to play that, even if it's not on the level of what a WWE show's done with combined tickets. Obviously, WWE gives away tickets, so that maybe they didn't reach 80,000 paid, but they've had bigger shows. The fact that it was AEW's biggest show by far in Wembley Stadium, something Tony's setting up for years to come, and he almost ruined the start of that pay-per-view to where it was delayed about 15 minutes. And people don't realize it because they kept talking through the 0 hour into the actual show and made it so like the TV people at home didn't really know what was happening, right? Samoa Joe saved that entire pay-per-view. Chris Jericho and them weren't ready to go on because Jericho had Fozzy playing and everything else, and they had to set it up. I think they tried to bring in the FTR match to come up first, and then they weren't ready. If Samoa Joe doesn't talk CM Punk down to come out and have their match, that pay-per-view is wrecked from the get-go.
And then if he doesn't go on, he doesn't get paid because it wouldn't be on the pay-per-view. And then that hurts Samoa Joe just because it's something that CM Punk does. And then I want to circle back around the Collision, how good CM Punk had it. He had it to the point where he came back. They initially made a show just for him.
He was unofficially the executive producer.
Yeah. And then it brings all his friends and people that he enjoys to work with onto that show. Like you said, FTR, he brought them there. Ricky Starks, Andrade. Mary Andrade. Apparently Thunder Rosa is going to be on that show when she comes back. You got Jay White, Juice Robinson. He grew a liking to Jay White. And he has had a lot. Both of those guys have had a lot of time on there, and they've brought the guns over there. So they brought a lot of people that he enjoyed to be with or and talk to.
There are people that love the guy.
Yeah, they bring him there, and then he had it good. He could go on there and not have to deal with the elite or anybody associated with them, and then he could just work and do whatever, and then. He still acts the way that he does, to where he feels like he's too big for certain people. Entitled. He can just say whatever he wants, not deal with anything, and it hurts everybody in the back to think that, because it's like you want the locker room to be one whole equal, and you got this guy who's acting bigger than life over there, even though this is his second chance in AEW, because he could have been gone. People forget he
almost didn't come back after the Elite thing.
Yeah,
and then he wasn't coming back.
And then it made a storyline about the Real World's champion, have him hold the belt with the X on it, saying that he never lost it, which was, to me, I love the idea of that. And
it was a mirror of the whole John Cena thing walking out years ago.
And now with this, that could be dead now, because what are you going to do with it? You really can't do much with it.
It's 100% dead. They didn't even mention it on Collision.
Like, he defends it, and then now it's gone because of all this.
And I think that's another reason why Tony had to come. I was going back and forth with friends about whether Tony should have ever made that speech, especially in front of Chicago. But I think in order for storylines to move forward, he almost had to, because now there's a big hole. Like when CM Punk left last time, it was like, okay, the guys are suspended, but we don't know what's happening with any of this. We're going to have a new world title tournament. Last time it was Jon Moxley that came to save the day, canceled his vacation, stuck around, did some extra work. This time it's Bryan Danielson coming back more than a month early, and you can still see his arm is injured, but he came back for the brand.
And then he even said in the media scrum that he wasn't 100%, that if you looked at it, it was a lot of smoke and mirrors with Ricky Starks carrying the match, and he didn't even throw a punch with that arm at all. You couldn't tell because of how fast they were going, but he refrained from using that arm at all. Which
is ironic, because then Ricky Starks dumped him on his head, which we know about his concussion issues. So I'm just like, use the arm. Use the arm. I see so many fanboys, and we've used the word marks a lot online. A lot of people, whether they get absorbed to thinking that this is beyond a business and this is real, or what they see in the ring is real, or they they suspend belief long enough to believe it's real while they're watching the show, right? You and I are fans. We love what we see. You and I have gone back and forth about what we've seen and what we like and what we don't like. There's a business side of things. And Dan, let me ask you a question. And I know you know the answer, but I'm going to do this for the people at home. 2018. Who started AEW?
The Elite and Cody Rhodes.
Yeah. And what was CM Punk doing in 2018?
He was in the UFC.
Getting his ass beat, sitting on the couch, right? Like he wasn't doing anything, really. He made an effort to the UFC, and I'm not knocking that because he got to live a dream out because of who he was, his name.
Yeah.
He didn't have to work through any indies or regional scenes, and he got to live out his dream. I'm not hating on the guy for that.
No.
A lot of people would do the same thing if they were in his position. But my point was, in the wrestling business, he was basically sitting on his ass for 7 years. When AEW launched, Cody reached out to him to see if he'd be interested in coming. Not only did he leak that out to the public, he repeatedly said that, well, they haven't made a real offer. All they said was like, would I be interested? They haven't put a contract in front of me. Like, he repeatedly kept saying that. And CM Punk and them are like, why would we put a contract in front of you if we don't even know you're interested in first? Like, we have to actually make contact with you to see what you want to do. But that's who CM Punk is. He immediately goes to whatever narrative makes him look the best, or in his mind. You fast forward to what happened last year, and people started dividing into sides, like the Elite versus CM Punk. And to me, that was never a debate because, and we talked about this last year when the whole thing happened, they just re-signed 4-year contracts. They decided to stick out with the company they built. Cody's already jumped ship to WWE. And you see what a good move that was for him. Yeah. Tony Khan, from one point or another, took over complete control of AEW away from the Elite to where they're kind of like backstage producers. They're not even like, they call them EVPs, but they kind of all have little roles to do here and there. But if those guys don't leave Japan, if those guys don't come to Ring of Honor and then throw the biggest independent-based show in the history of the business, there is no AEW. No. Those guys were so red hot that WWE had offers for all of them back in 2018, and they all said, well, if they want all of us, maybe we have enough pulling power to do our own thing. And they did. They pulled Tony Khan in with the money because Tony was a big fan. He had been backstage at some of the shows. He help sponsor and pay for a lot of that All In show originally. And they got together and said, all right, let's start a company. They pulled in Chris Jericho, who was floating around at the time between Japan and WWE and was basically like on a handshake deal. They were able to steal him away, which was a big deal because Chris is always about new challenges. He's always about, I don't want to do the same thing again. You saw with every WWE return, he was different.
And he kind of got the itch again after doing those matches in Japan with Omega, Naito, and Okada. It kind of gave him new life, and he knew that he was going to be able to be that star if he went back to WWE.
Yeah, and WWE is just another player. And you see how they put people out to pasture before their time, usually. Like, if Vince is done with you, you're like Samoa Joe. You put him on commentary, right? Like, which ironically Samoa said, going on to say he loves doing, and when he is done wrestling, he actually wants to go back to it. He actually loved it. But you look at back in the day, Macho Man wasn't done. You put him on commentary because he didn't really want to use him anymore. He's done that with a number of wrestlers. And Chris Jericho never wanted to be that guy. And when you get to where they are today, none of that exists without the Elite.
Yeah.
Adam Page in there as well. CM Punk literally went off camera, not on camera for an angle, off camera and bashed Adam Page. Like, this is after his Collision return. When you're doing things off camera, you're going into business for yourself. You're not working a crowd. I don't care how he tried to play it or like he apologized to Page later. He also sent Page home indirectly from a vignette taping and some other stuff they were taping because they didn't want him in the same arena. The Elite Vince went on to cancel a meeting right before All In they were supposed to have to squash everything because the Elite were actually mad about that.
And everybody thinks that that's why he flew off the handle afterwards, was the fact that they canceled it because he was under the impression that they're having the beat-in when they asked, I think, the Young Bucks, and he said, we were never told that there was a meeting. We were asked if we wanted to have a meeting, and we declined it at this time.
The only one that wanted to meet was Kenny Omega.
Yeah,
because Kenny's the peacekeeper. He is that. That's how he's built. He wants to make everybody happy. Yeah. Kenny is the peacekeeper. He wanted to meet, and CM Punk didn't want to meet with just him alone. That is the facts. That is a fact. But also, I do wonder sometimes if CM Punk is bipolar or ADHD, or some little bit of spectrum of autism, because I know people personally close to me that once they get into a mindset, it's very hard to get them out of that bad mood, right? CM Punk landed in London and had travel issues from the get-go. Nobody to pick him up, had to catch a cab. There's pictures of him at Starbucks with fans because he was just like floating around London for a while trying to figure out how to get to the show. When you have that mindset of this is already messed up before I get to the show, it's very easy to set someone in with those mental issues completely off if one thing goes wrong. And that's a real thing. Anybody who knows people in their lives that are like that, they have to be able to sit down, calm down, completely reset away from everything before they can go back to being normal. And I really feel CM Punk is one of those people because you see how quickly he goes off and does not calm down for a while until he like resets. And when you get something like that in real life, in the business side of things, it wasn't until he reset that Samoa Joe was able to get him to come out and do that match. And even after the match, he was telling goodbye to the fans and did the whole Roman Reigns thing as he was walking out. I don't think that was an accident. I don't think it was an accident at all. I think he knew his time was done. He did that one last favor for Samoa Joe, not for the company. And honestly, I don't think we see CM Punk again. Like a lot of people say Survivor Series, Chicago, maybe a run through WrestleMania. And that makes a lot of sense financially, right? Like Roman Reigns has run out of opponents. Like he's recycling through different people. He's doing different projects.
I know before he came back around Rumble time, there was talks about him going back and doing something with Kevin Owens, and then it never happened. And he wound up going back to AEW. And now you got all the talks lately about Impact might having a shot at bringing him in. They're looking to up their production company. Yeah, they're looking to up in the production company and cameras and everything. And then even EC3, who just won the NWA World title, said that he would take him in that locker room in a minute, and they'd be welcoming him in open arms. And I just look at it like one company he leaves on bad notes, he goes to another, and then the same thing happens. That's twice. You can almost expect it to happen a third time if he's brought in to a third company. So it's like, why do that? I understand. He brings people viewership. As soon as he got fired, they said over 30,000 people were tuned out of AEW. But is it worth it to bring all those people in if he's just going to go back out and they're just going to leave again off of something bad that might put a bad taste in fans' mouths like it is with this one? It's going to. I know it's going to take a little bit to get over, but at the end of the day, I felt like once he was gone from the brawl out the last year going into Collision, I felt like the company
we've gotten.
I felt like the company rebounded. They're doing great. You felt like there was no issues at all. All the product was great. Even when he came back, the fact that they have Collision.
And real quick to interrupt you. Same thing happened in WWE. Everybody thought when he walked out in 2014, oh, the world's going to end. Wrestling companies will keep on going no matter which star leaves. Like, it doesn't matter if it's Hulk Hogan. It doesn't matter if it's CM Punk. The world's going to keep moving. And AEW, which can now get more back to its roots and more back to what it's doing. But please, go ahead.
And then you have him start Collision. Even if he's not on there, I feel like Collision's going to be a great show. Ricky Starks cut a great promo on Dynamite.
Shows. I think 3 shows is too much.
Yeah, I would think get rid of Rampage, but Ricky Starks seems like a star in the making. He didn't tap out. I thought that was a great move there by keeping him strong and then have him cut a big promo. I think they're going to wind up replacing CM Punk with Jay White and Bullet Club Gold.
Immediately it's going to be Bryan Danielson. But go ahead.
Yeah. I like the move there. I was just going to mention that the move him to Saturdays. He said in the media scrum that works out great for him and his schedule to be able to just do a Collision. Even though he's part of BCC, he could still do both, but primarily be used on Collision. It creates new rivalries for him. I want to see him and Starks continue what they're doing, see him versus Jay White, see him versus any of those guys on Saturday night. That is great to bring in, and he's a big name base that could tune people in the Saturdays, like CM Punk is, because I think Bryan Danielson rivals CM Punk because they're both in WWE, and it can kind of soften the blow of having to fire CM Punk.
I mean, if we're being real, Bryan's a bigger star.
Yeah.
In the wrestling industry, maybe media industry, CM Punk is a bigger name. But in the wrestling business, Bryan Danielson's a way bigger name just because of his work rate and his cult-like ability to pull a crowd. If he wants to go back to being a face, come on. Like, he can be a heel on Dynamite, a face on Collision. Like, he does whatever he wants. But people, even when he's a bad guy, are cheering for this guy. Like, he's ever since the Yes movement, the guy is untouchable. When you talk about CM Punk, you talk about all the baggage, like you said. There are potential. You named a couple things. One, Impact has its big anniversary show coming up. The guy has a big history in TNA. People don't remember, it's been so long, but Raven put this guy on the map, right? Like, Raven's work with him in Ring of Honor and in TNA put CM Punk on the map. So he has a history there. Could he pop up for one show, for the anniversary show? Yeah, I could see that. They're talking about trying to bring in like AJ Styles and other people who are under contract to other people. That was probably in the works before this even happened. Could he pop up in NWA? I don't see that. I don't see that at all. EC3 might be friends with him, but Billy's super cheap, and he owes Nick Aldis money. He owes a bunch of people money. A lot of people he's almost like CM Punk in the administrative side because people are picking sides at this point, whether they want to work with Billy or they can't stand what he's doing to the business. I have another tangent about Billy, but check out my Twitter for that one. I just think it's very hypocritical what he says about rock and roll, but he's keeping NWA in the Stone Ages. Just saying. And then also coming out with a rock and roll album like his first.
Yeah.
Not very evolving there, Billy. But, you know what I was saying about Roman Reigns having no competition to the point where he's going through everybody, right? Like, they're recycling the bloodline thing to kind of try to create something down the road, or maybe they'll trade Cody to SmackDown somehow to get to WrestleMania, right? So for him to either keep the title for another year or drop it. CM Punk makes that all interesting again. From a fan point of view, he comes in a Survivor Series in Chicago, goes through WrestleMania on a short-term deal where he has to keep in line because it's a short-term deal and he wants that money, which, by the way, he doesn't care about money, so that's not a guarantee, first of all. He could blow it up in any given time.
Yeah.
He was getting paid millions in AEW, and he literally blew it up. And that's twice. In 2 years. Yeah, it's perfect timing with that, too, right there. In 2 years. Yeah, that would be great for Roman Reigns. I don't know that Roman wants to work with him. He already did the Shield thing with him. I don't know what his lasting taste in his mouth is, because Roman is one of those guys that does not go on talking about other people on the internet. You very rarely catch a clip of him like being real about something. I think the only time I've ever heard him say anything about CM Punk, he was like, I don't really want to talk about that guy. And that was when Punk, I think, was like on backstage, like flirting with coming back to WWE. Seth Rollins, who's the world champion, wants nothing to do with CM Punk. He bashes him every chance he gets. He hates that guy. And obviously they're both tight with Moxley, who has nothing good to say about CM Punk right now. So the chances of him coming back to WWE, you know, Vince says never say never. And the Endeavor deal with WWE is supposed to be done this month officially, and Endeavor loves CM Punk. They've employed him through UFC. They've employed him on CFFC doing the commentary. There you go, Cage Fury right there. Shout out to Cage Fury. Just a note on the network, we're signing Robert Veraccio. Anyway, who he just won last weekend. He's going to be joining Fighters First. You just heard it here first. That said, like, nobody wants to touch this guy in the wrestling world. Once, twice, fool me once, fool me twice, 3 times, it's all on you. Nobody wants to touch this guy, Dan. I'll give you the last thought on this whole thing. Obviously, we think AEW will be just fine. If anything, they get a little bit more back to their roots, a little bit more about building stars versus trying to keep stars. But what does this mean for CM Punk, and what does this mean for the wrestling world going forward?
I wouldn't be surprised if he goes back to TV. He's done appearances here and there. Of course, he did Minds. He had a recurring role on there, and then now with Heels.
Was he on Heels too?
Yeah, Heels. He just appeared on there with him and AJ, his wife. They were just on there again, but he was on season 1. He's the real
star of that relationship.
Yeah. And then I wouldn't be surprised if he does that, maybe continues to do CFFC, because he was still getting paid through them too, to doing commentary and announcing on there. So
he's still doing it time to time. I think he only does like when they come to certain areas.
But I wouldn't be surprised if he does that on a full-time schedule again now that he's not doing AEW. And then with AEW, it was good when it was good. It was bad when it was bad. I think the small, like, first month, fans that are tuned out will be tuned out, but give it time, they'll be back in. They'll be tuned in again once the whole CM Punk thing goes over their heads. It's a short-term thing. They knew it was going to happen eventually. If you don't think it was going to happen, I don't know what to say, because this isn't the first time that a wrestling company has to deal with this with that CM Punk. So things will be fine. They're tuned in. I think Collision will be a lot better. And now that they essentially replaced him with Bryan Danielson on that show. And
they sold 80,000 tickets without knowing a single match on that card in London before they even announced a single match. And CM Punk was not announced for that.
And it's going to take, like I said, after that, it's going to take a couple weeks to get everything back in order, because having him not there kind of screws storylines up.
They don't have no storyline. Stop it. Stop it. They have great action. They have great matches. They don't have any long-term storylines. Stop it.
They have good storylines.
We'll debate this on another episode. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt
you. But everything will be fine. Like, he'll go do what he wants to do, where he doesn't have to deal with people that he doesn't want to deal with. And then the AEW will move on like they're going to do. So it is what it is.
All right, folks, leave a comment. We know this issue is going to be a hot button topic. People are on, look, everybody is a fan of CM Punk in the ring. Not everybody's a fan of the business side of CM Punk. So leave a comment. Let us know your thoughts on the whole situation. Stop blaming Jack Perry for everything, because this is bigger than Jack Perry. Believe me, they would not fire him over Jack Perry. I am one of the people that actually am a big believer of Jack Perry going forward. I think the kid has potential since he's turned heel. It's not Jack Perry's fault. It's not Christopher Daniels' fault. It's not Ryan Neiman's fault. It's CM Punk's fault. Leave a comment. Let us know. For Dan Bakley, I'm Mike Ginn. This is Slamtown, and we're out.